Deathless Titans placed upon the face of the earth 3 generations of men, the first of them being men of gold. Becoming too close to gods themselves, Cronus ended their time on earth with an eternal sleep. A second generation came to be, the men of silver. Unwilling to serve the Titans and make sacrifices upon the holy altars, as all men shall do, they were condemned to dwell under the earth for all eternity. Finally, a third generation, the men of bronze, a brazen race, sprung from the ash tree. Terrible and strong are they. Join me as I tell you the tales of the men of bronze. This is Dragon's Blood. Beware Brontes. Episode 17. The plan for the morning was to wake early and get a good start to the day. They did wake early, but no one got out from under their warm blankets. Akim was the first to get dressed and start a fire to keep them warm. Menkari and Gamden followed suit and broke out the dry goods for breakfast to fuel them for the road. Sunisret wasn't snoring, so they knew he was awake too. He poked his head out from under the blankets and asked with a noticeable whine in his voice, "Is it still raining?" "No, it stopped a long time ago," answered Gamden. "Oh boy!" Sunisret jumped out of bed, standing there, buck naked, arms akimbo. "Let's get dressed and..." It was at that point that he looked outside and saw it raining hard as ever. "You lied!" His voice dripping with contempt. "Eat this, you big bastard." Gamden tossed him an apple. "Get dressed, and let's get going. We're behind schedule already." Sunisret took a big bite and started getting dressed for the day. "Horses are ready to go, and so am I. How about a couple of those apples for me?" said Akim as he sat in front of the fire and warmed his hands. Menkari piped up, "Me too, please." Everyone ate their fill and soon was on the road. To lighten the mood, traveling songs helped pass the time. A couple of hours down the trail and Sunisret's stomach began to growl uncontrollably. He stopped dead in his tracks and said, "I'll be right back." Running quickly across the brush, he made the tree line in seconds flat. They sat in silence, waiting for Sunisret's return when he shouted, "Gamden, come here! You gotta see this." With a disgusted look on his face, Gamden shouted back, "I'm not falling for that again. I don't want to see how big of a crap you took." Akim laughed and shook his head, while Menkari went red in the face. "No, it's not that. But it was an impressive crap," Sunisret shouted back from the tree line. "I think it has something to do with that note we found last night." Gamden looked at his traveling mates, shrugged his shoulders and said, "I guess we'd better go see what he had found. Maybe he solved the mystery." The horses slowly went through the soaking wet brush, careful not to get caught up in the fallen logs and tangles of branches. Dismounting at the threshold of the forest, they went in to find Sunisret. They found him kneeling at the trunk of a massive tree. The roots had somehow ripped themselves out of the ground, and there entangled was a tarnished armor with the ribcage still intact, but minus the head. On the left breast, the same crest from the ring in the chest. The right shoulder was crushed in, as if a large, blunt object had struck a devastating blow. Close by, 2 other skeletons could be seen, one clad in chainmail, and the other tattered old leather breastplate. In between all 3 was a metal handle sticking straight up out of the ground. "Looks like Pharnabazus took a couple of the highwaymen to the grave with him. But look at this." Akim pointed to the crushed right shoulder and continued, "I know of only one thing that could bash in this plate armor like that? Minkari nodded in agreement and said, Brontes' hammer. Yes, Brontes' hammer. So, what about Brontes' hammer? Asked Gamden as he looked at Sunisret. I don't know. Never heard of it, replied Sunisret as he scratched his head. Brontes' hammer, continued Akim, is as heavy as a full-grown man, and just as tall. Used to forge the weapons of the gods, it is imbued with powerful magical energy. Minkari did his best to crawl over the roots to look at the crest on the shoulder of the breastplate, but as he grabbed the metal handle, it moved slightly, setting him off balance, almost falling flat on his back. Gamden, seeing his distress, was quicker and set him back on his feet. Grabbing the metal handle, Gamden tried to pull it out but couldn't. Sunisret, see if you can pull it out for me. Sunisret pulled away some loose moss and other debris from the shaft, rubbed his hands together, grabbed hold, and did his best to dislocate it. He grunted with exertion, but no luck. He looked at everyone, then looked at the handle, and said with determination in his voice, Let's try that again. This time he braced his feet on the roots, grabbed hold, and shouted as he pulled. Without warning, it let go. Sunisret's arms flew into the air, metal handle in hand, and he went tumbling, head over heels backwards. Lying flat on his back, looking up into the canopy, all he could say was, Ouch. What did you pull out? Queried Akim. I don't know, he answered as he sat up, but it's heavy. Removing bits and pieces of root and clumps of dirt, the head of a morning star was exposed. The morning star of Pharnabazus, said Minkari with reverence in his voice. To find the ring is one thing, but his morning star? We truly are witness to miraculous events. The forest went silent. Even the rain ceased for a moment. Sunisret broke the silence by asking, What makes this so special? He lifted the weapon up and grunted as he did. What makes it so heavy? Minkari sat on a root and explained. Hephaestus, smithy to the gods, cast it for the paladin in defiance of Zeus. Greedy rather than giving, self-involved when we should be thinking of others. These are the qualities of men that make Zeus believe we are not ready for such powerful weapons. But Hephaestus, yes, Hephaestus. Minkari tapped his left temple to emphasize his point. He was able to see past that, knowing that people are evil, but one man can be good. Pharnabazus was that one good man. Minkari paused, closed his eyes for a moment, then continued. I also recall the poets of yore writing that the morning star was as light as a feather in his hands, but yet could break the hardest rock with a single blow. Why didn't Brontes take the weapon if it's so powerful? Asked Gamden as he touched one of the spikes on the head. Pharnabazus' head was the trophy all along, continued Minkari. The treaty must have been a ruse to lure him into Con Biagio's trap. With the three kingdoms' greatest warrior out of the way, the next spring, Biagio, with the other cons, laid siege to Azerta. What should we do with the remains? Asked Gamden. Even if there is only a skeleton left, he deserves to rest with his ancestors. Akim nodded in agreement and said, You're right, Gamden. He does deserve better. Walking over, he reached down to lift the skeleton out of the ground, when the tree shuddered violently, and the roots began to claw their way back into the ground. Sunisret saw Minkari go heels over head and scooped him up before he was swallowed up too. The roots dragged the bodies back into their graves, never to be seen again. Still in his arms, both Minkari and Sunisret said in unison, "By Zeus's beard!" Akim piped up, "Miraculous events. Surely this is what Kefu meant." He made a sweeping gesture with his arm to encompass the entire tree. "What have we yet to witness?" It was a unanimous decision that they should leave as soon as possible and put as much distance between them and the tree. 3 more days of relentless rain was draining all the spirit that was left in the party. The morning of the 8th day brought sunshine and warmer temperatures. For a change, there was no need for heavy rain jackets and soggy traveling clothes. Caravans also started streaming west again, laden with all sorts of exotic cargo. Sunisret saw a wagon overloaded with bottles and kegs full of wine. He pleaded for some coin to get even a couple of bottles for the road. Gamden relented and tossed him some copper coins. "Here, take these." Sunisret handed over his haversack and took off in pursuit of some delicious wine. "I'll be right back," he shouted over his shoulder. Akim whistled as he watched the dust at his heels. "That boy sure can run when he has a reason to." "Wine being number one," Gamden said with a laugh. "We can keep going. He'll catch up quick." Minutes later, he came back at half pace, bottle in each hand, and 4 more tied over his shoulders. "I got a couple for you as well," handing the bottle over to Gamden as he continued. "And 4 for me." "Why 4 for you?" asked Gamden. "Because I am thirsty and tired after that run." Speaking of being tired, the driver of the wagon that sold me the wine told me there is a roadhouse up ahead where we can rent rooms for the night. I don't know about you, but I could use a comfortable bed tonight instead of the hard ground. "Warm bed! Warm bed!" agreed Minkari. "My weary bones need a warm bed!" Gamden and Akim nodded in agreement. "Only a couple hours ahead. Be there before sundown," he said. Sunisret held up a bottle so that the sunlight went right through it. "I'm going to enjoy this wine with a half a peg." He licked his lips with anticipation. "Only half a peg?" Minkari asked. "Gotta save some room for the wine." Sunisret began to sing his favorite drinking ditty. The party joined in, raising the morale and passing the time until the night's festivities. 3 hours later, with voices hoarse and weary bodies, the party rounded a corner. Gamden wrinkled his nose and asked, "What is that horrible stench?" The wind blew in a scent mixed of human and animal feces, with a hint of compost heaps. "We're getting close to the roadhouse. That stench is from the farms and sewage lagoons." Akim pointed off into the distance and continued, "You get that many people in a small space, it's going to smell." They rounded the next corner, and a clearing in the forest opened up before them. Several farms came into view with a large 3-story building off in the distance. People milled about, looking at all the various wares offered from the wagons parked from the night. The first farm they came upon had a swine in a pen. Sunisret walked over, pointed at it, and said, "There's my dinner right there. Gamden, give me a gold coin, and I'll get the farmer to butcher it up for us." Reaching into the sack around his neck, Gamden fished out a gold coin pressing it into Sunnisret's palm, he said, "Remember that this coin has the 3 crowns stamped on them. Doubt if they're used much around here." Sunnisret shrugged his shoulders. "What should I tell him if he asks?" Gamden looked up into the sky. Oh, I know. Tell him that you robbed some pilgrims." Sunnisret grinned, spun on his heel, and walked toward the boar. "Here, Peggy, time for sup. Come find us," Gamden shouted after him. Hearing the squeals of the swine, Kepri poked his head out of Ackham's saddlebag. Eyes squinting from the bright sunlight, he smelled the breeze and jumped out of the bag. Hitting the ground running, he was in search of a fat rat for his sup. "You come find us too," Gamden shouted. Kepri stopped, but did not look back. Flicked his tail, meowed long and loud, then was back to the hunt. Look for episode 18 of Dragon's Blood, Beware Brontes, on YouTube.